All right, so it looks like we're ready for the last step, but this might be a good time for us to stop and take a look at what you have so far and realize some of you, this is one of those times where when you didn't listen to Mr. Orth, didn't pay attention to a particular direction, you just made more work for yourself right here and now. And here we go. So as it says in the box here, do you remember how I repeated several times on screencasts, or especially those in my communications classes, you heard this all through February, that a piece of information is no more than a sentence? Well, some of you claim you never heard that. You may have ignored it. You may have skipped the screencasts. You might be wondering what a screencast is, which is too bad because you're listening to one right now. And you copied whole paragraphs, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences, whole chunks of information, and you threw in your information gathering without really being sure what you needed from that. Well, I guarantee you, you don't need the entire paragraph. And you certainly don't need 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 entire paragraphs. So what you have to do right now is you have to hit the pause button, hit the brakes, and you need to go through that outline and break it up. And I'll show you what that looks like with an example here, but it's still part of this next step. So if you're going to summarize a longer block of information into a single sentence of your own, you can leave it as it is today. If, however, that block of information, you're going to use multiple pieces out of that, it's going to take you more than one sentence, not one rambling sentence, more than one actual sentence in order to share the information from that paragraph. You're going to have to split those up into individual capital letter lines. So here's how it looks on the example. So I reformatted this just for the example I already have, and I made this into one giant paragraph. I know it's kind of cheating because there's already quotation marks in there, start and stop, and there's citations. But for now, we're going to treat this Roman numeral 2 paragraph. What are the animals of tropical rainforests in Africa that are endangered? We're going to treat that like it's one giant paragraph. This is too much. I have to split it up. So I'm going to read through this. In the first 2 sentences, I think I can make that into one sentence. So I'm going to go ahead, put my cursor down, and I'm going to hit enter. And even though this is 2 sentences here, I know I can write this version. I can put these 2 sentences into one, and that's going to be okay. So that's separate. I've got quotation marks to start and stop. I've got a period to end it, and I have a citation. It's okay if I have to copy and paste the letter A and number 5 several times because I'm splitting things up. That's fine. But I want to make sure I have the information right where I need it. Each one piece of information per line. Letter B is still too long. I'm going to scan through it. It looks like the next sentence is a good place to break. So I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to split it one more time so that right now each sentence is there. Now once I split it so every sentence is there, every sentence has my quotation marks because there's still the words from the source. Every sentence has a source, letter, and page or paragraph number. Great. But at this point, I can decide, do I really want to keep all these? Because if I thought I had 12, 13, 14, 15 pieces of information before, and now I have 20, I could probably take some of that out, save myself some time later because I don't need all of it, and maybe just not have this full paper, because the more information you have, the longer the next steps are going to be after today. So for this purposes, I've got all these things, and I'm keeping that. I split this up. So if you take a look at what you've got and everything is okay, everything, the rest of this is only one sentence or it can be written as one sentence, then you're good to go. If not, then we need to go ahead and pause and come back to it before we finish with step E. All right, so I hope you went ahead and took care of that for step E. Now we're going to go ahead and do the last part of it. Step E is where we're splitting the sections and adding headings. So at this point, you just finished that last step of breaking up paragraphs. Some of you did that along the way when you took my advice and coaching. Some of you had to spend some time on that. But right now, every capital lettered line is going to be one sentence in your final paper. Great. So hopefully you're already watching the screencast. Otherwise, how would you be hearing me say to watch the screencast? So when I say scan the sections of the outline, you're going to look at each section. You're going to count the number of pieces of information in each section. So if a section has no information, well, then it's not really a section. If it's a question you didn't answer, it's something you didn't find information for, delete it. Get rid of that section. It's not in your outline anymore. I don't care if that drops you down to have only 2 sections. But if you have a section label with no information, time to take it out. If you have a section with only 1 piece of information, that should be combined with another section, meaning it's probably going to be part of a paragraph. But it can't be a paragraph by itself with just the topic sentence and 1 sentence after it. We're not going to do that anymore in our writing. So if it's 1 piece of information, it might need to be combined with the section before it or the section after it. Again, this is a great opportunity to have me coach you do on Zoom rather than simply exchanging emails for several days in a row. If you have a section with 2 or 3 pieces of information in it, that's actually just right. I want you to leave that alone. Don't do anything else with it. Leave it as it is. If you have a section with 4 or more pieces of information, and let's think about it, if you had 15 pieces of information you're going to use, and you had only 3 sections, you've got several that have 4 or more. Well, those need to be split. So to do that, and we'll take a look at what we've got. So the example, see how I have 4 here? I have to split the section. The next section only has 2. I'm going to leave the one with 2 alone. The one with 4 has to get split up. How do I do that? Well, first, I'm going to decide where one group stops and the next group begins. I'm going to use the Enter key to create a blank line of a capital letter between each. So if I'm looking through this, I might think, well, let's see how it looks if I just split up these 4 into 2 and 2. The capital letter is there, and I'm going to leave that for now. When I read through this, it looks like the bottom part of this, they both talk about elephants. And the big topic of the paragraph is, what are the animals that are endangered? So I might put down African elephants. Okay. Now my directions say, once I figured out what to put on that line, because I have to put something on that line. It could be a question, a heading, or a phrase that describes a small group. Both my sentences talked about African elephants, so I put that down as my heading for now. Now, number 3, I'm going to use the tab key to indent it so that it moves over and starts with a regular number. So I have my C African elephants, no citation, it's a label. I'm going to push those over because now I know that these 2 sentences go with the idea of the heading of African elephants. But you see how this looks unbalanced because I have 2 pieces of information here and a heading, but I have these 2 up top and there isn't a heading for it. Well, as the directions say, you also need a new line with a question, heading, or phrase for the first group of information. So I'm going to hit Enter, go back up top, and looks like this is tropical rainforest, and this is Indonesia. So I'm just going to put down, since rainforest, the Indonesian is a rainforest, not Africa. And I'm going to repeat the step of using the tab key to push them over. Now see what I've done here is I've split my paragraph, my section, into 2 parts. Is it okay, for example, to have just a section of 1 piece of information here and 3 there? Do I have to be 2 and 2? Yeah, within a paragraph, underneath the Roman numeral, you can have 1 piece of information and 3 in the other. But if you have 2 and 2, or 2 and 3, or 3 and 3, even 2, and again, 2 and 4, you got to split the 4. Again, it's okay if you get stuck. That's why I didn't want you to have a ton of information. I wanted you to have 12 to 15 pieces of information, 12 to 15 sentences of information total. That's why I didn't have you keep going to 25 pieces of information. That's why I wanted several of you to cut your paragraphs of notes into individual sentences. The more you have right now, not going to lie, the more work you actually have to do. So once I've done that, I split it up. I have 2 items here. Section 4, I actually had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I split that up. I had the idea of poaching, killing animals and poaching. So I used what is poaching as my heading. I used a question here. The next section talked about rhinoceros horns and ivory being used to make tools. Again, see how I've got 2 sentences here, but when I write it, I'll make it into one. And I said animal parts are used. Next section again, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I split it into 2 sections. What are some things being done? What the governments can do, countries and governments, what others can do. Okay. And then here we're talking about biologists, environmental organizations, and tourism, local people. So the job really here is to take those larger chunks of 4 or more pieces of information and try to split those up into sets of 2 and 3, or groups of 2 and 3. This is not easy to do. And it's okay if you're not sure what the heading should be. But this is a great time to either conference with a classmate or check in with me. A number of you, what you've got actually works pretty well. And this example had 3 main ideas. If you had 4 or 5, actually it might be easier to do this because you have 4 or 5 sets of information, 4 or 5 sections, but you might have had 12 or 13 pieces of information, which is the better odds for you to have things spread out. If so, great. If not, treat it the same idea. You're trying to figure out what question does that section answer and go from there. So you check all the remaining sections throughout your outline and repeat this step in order to make sure that you have what you need. Once you have it all together, your final draft is going to look something like this. It'll be sitting at the very top, way up here where you pasted everything on page 2. And you go ahead and submit this organizing and outlining step because you have your outline done. Awesome job, great work. Looking forward to reading it, giving you feedback on tweaking some things, but I really hope you finish this and you feel good about it. Then we'll get ready for the next step. We are getting close. Keep at it. Remember, you've got this, and I've got you.